While the daughter he kicked out 12 years ago fights for her life, a father decides to give up a piece of himself to buy more time for her. She is not prepared for what awaits her when she regains consciousness. Aye, you look really happy today. Mr. Murphy's old buddies laughed as he marched out of the church after the Sunday Mass. Any guesses, fellas? I am going home to tell my wife to get ready to send our eldest daughter Rebecca away. Send Rebecca away? Yup, I just met an old friend whose son is seeking a bride. He joked about us going from just friends to relatives. I thought it was an amazing idea. I'm running late, pals. Got to get things ready for my girl's wedding. Mr. Murphy was chirpy and excited on his way home, dreaming about his daughter's marriage. But what did he see as soon as he entered the gate? Rebecca was sneaking out to the dumpster to dispose of something. He was about to find out that it was a pregnancy test kit, and the result would shock him even more. What is Rebecca doing at the dumpster? What is she hiding? Mr. Murphy wondered as he quietly crept behind the wall and watched his daughter toss something wrapped in tissue paper into the bin. After Rebecca returned inside, her dad walked to the dumpster and rummaged through it. What is this thing? He pondered as he lifted the pregnancy test kit wrapped in crumpled tissue. Mr. Murphy was deeply shocked as he recognized what it was. He stormed to his house, hoping he was wrong. Rebecca? Come here. What's this? What's going on? Rebecca turned pale and speechless after seeing the pregnancy test in her dad's hand. Dad, I wanted to tell you. I am sorry. It was an accident during my camp with my friends. What the hell? Are you pregnant? Rebecca's silence answered Mr. Murphy's question. His whole world crumbled under his feet, and he was startled beyond belief. You are such a disgrace to the family. How could you do this to me? How will I face everyone? People will mock me at the church. What kind of a daughter have you raised? They will laugh. Mr. Murphy furiously marched to Rebecca's room and returned moments later with her belongings. Get out of my house. Don't ever come back. You don't exist for me. He hurled her suitcase and booted her out without thinking further. Dad, please allow me to explain. Mr. Murphy slammed the door in Rebecca's face, shutting her out of his life forever. But where would poor Rebecca go? She knew nobody, and her family was her only support. Now, even they had abandoned her. Rebecca's pregnancy was the bitter outcome of a one-night stand with a stranger she met at the camp. They parted ways, assuming everything was done and dusted. Unfortunately, her pregnancy symbolized her mistake, which could not be undone because it was too late. Mr. Murphy ousted Rebecca on a cold night to fend for herself and the little life growing inside her. What would happen to this poor mom to be alone out in the cruel world? But it was the least of her father's concerns. Months passed, and 23-year-old Rebecca welcomed a beautiful baby boy. She lived in a homeless shelter for some time and made friends who referred her for a job in a paint factory. Rebecca shuttled between work and raising her son, John. 12 years flew by, and she devoted her life to giving her son a promising future. They moved to a trailer, and their world seemed small and cozy, but not for long, as a storm was on its way. Rebecca's race against time to raise her son and give him a happy life had cost her health. Due to exposure to harsh chemicals in the paint factory, Rebecca's liver slowly started to fail. She did not sense what was happening inside her body until she fell unconscious on the factory premises while working a second shift one day. 911, what's your emergency? A colleague has fallen unconscious. She's not waking up even after we splashed water on her face, Rebecca's colleague replied. Moments later, an ambulance arrived and hurried Rebecca to the hospital. The doctors examined her and found that her liver had been severely damaged by prolonged chemical exposure. Her last resort was to get a donation immediately. I know her. She's Mr. Murphy's daughter. I met them in the church together several years ago. I'll inform him immediately, one of the doctors revealed after recognizing Rebecca. Moments later, at Mr. Murphy's house, Jesus Christ. Doctor, is my daughter fine? I'm on my way. Please, save her. Mr. Murphy cried when the doctor informed him about Rebecca's prognosis. He raced to the hospital, knowing little he would be the one to give his beloved daughter a second chance in life. Mr. Murphy arrived at the hospital, his heart racing to see his daughter. He couldn't immediately recognize 12-year-old John crying beside her bed, asking God to save his mother. Is this my daughter's son? My grandson? But John couldn't identify Mr. Murphy as his grandfather. Rebecca had never told him anything about her past or her family. As Mr. Murphy walked toward John to comfort him, the doctor's voice broke the silence of the ward and interrupted him. Mr. Murphy, Rebecca needs an urgent liver transplant. You could be a perfect match because you are her father, the doctor told Mr. Murphy, who was guilt-ridden and ready to move mountains to save Rebecca's life. I will do anything to save my daughter, doctor. What should I do next? He responded in tears. Mr. Murphy, these are the tests you should undergo before we begin with the procedure. Please come this way. The tests came back positive, and Mr. Murphy was told he was healthy for organ donation. Soon, the operation was underway, and after 28 hours, Rebecca regained consciousness. The doctors congratulated her and said, Miss Rebecca, he saved your life. Curious to meet the person who rescued her from death, Rebecca turned to the side and saw her father on the bed nearby. She could not believe her eyes and called out to him, melting into tears after seeing him closely. Daddy? She whispered, tears gushing from her eyes. Dad, Daddy. Mr. Murphy regained consciousness and turned around. He was delighted to see his daughter alive and away from the clutch of death. Rebecca and her father kept staring into each other's eyes, conveying 12 years of their agony through tears. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm really sorry. Please forgive me for letting you down. And you have raised such a wonderful son, my dear, he whispered as Rebecca smiled tearfully. Mom, who is he? John chimed in curiously. He's your grandpa. Please go hug him on my behalf, dear. John thanked the Almighty for saving his mother's life and ran to his grandpa. Grandpa, where were you all these years? He cried. Mr. Murphy couldn't immediately answer John's question. He left it to time to heal everything and was happy that he got the chance to atone for his mistake. Months passed and Rebecca slowly healed. She moved back in with her parents and quit her job. Mr. Murphy and Rebecca forgave each other and never looked back at their past. Instead, they did everything possible to make their lives better and happy.